Hello everyone and welcome to My Fantasy Journey, a channel dedicated to opinion-based fantasy book reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about a book which I was very excited about, and I had a lot of expectations the first time I saw it, the first time I heard of it, the first time I read about it. It was a book that I was so looking forward to. I had such high hopes for it, and I was like so excited to read. Yeah, it was a book that really caught my eye, since the beginning. Seeing like the cover artwork, I know that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but when a book has a beautiful cover, of course it calls attention. Reading what the book was about, and what the author incorporated in this book, reading all the reviews, because this book has a lot of positive reviews and a lot of people loved it. But sadly, after I read it, I felt like it left a lot to be desired, and I think I'm going to be a part of of the group of people who didn't really love this book as much as other people did. I'm not saying that I completely disliked it or that I hated it or anything, but I think I'm gonna be leaning more to the group of people who didn't really care for it, or that just felt like lukewarm on it. And that being said, the book that I'm going to be discussing today is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I just wanted to point out first, like, the cover of this book is absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous artwork, and like I said, that's one of the first things that caught my eye, because I'm very visual, and I know that like I said, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. But this book has such a gorgeous artwork. There's a lot of like editions of this book that I've seen, but definitely this one, which is, I think, is like the original, or maybe just like the American or version or something like that. This one is definitely the most beautiful of all. It's absolutely stunning. I loved it. I love it. But sadly, that's not how I felt about this book at all. First of all, let me tell you a little bit what it's about, just in case you haven't heard of it. This is just like a tiny little, like insight, what the book is more or less about. So this book is about this girl called Agnieszka. She lives in this peaceful, sleepy village that are surrounded by woods that are corrupted, and that they're kind of like evil. This village, it's kind of like in the mercy, so to say, or in the disposition of this wizard named Dragon. So he's kind of like the protector of this village, but he protects them, with this price to pay, which is that every 10 years he must take a girl from the village. He must choose a girl from the village and take her into his towers, and keep her there for quite some time. And then Agnieszka, she knows that she's not going to be the one who's going to be chosen, because she knows that the dragon won't choose her, because she's not the prettiest, and she's not like the smartest or the sweetest. She doesn't have like the best qualities. So she's sure that the dragon won't choose her as the maiden, who's going to be taken to the tower. She's sure that a girl named Kasia is going to be the one who's going to be taken, because she has all those qualities. But then in the end, she is wrong. So, that's kind of like what the book more or less, that's just like a general, super general, like little insight of the book. But anyways, let's start talking about this book, and let me start by first saying the things that I liked about this book. I like the fact that it was very original. It was a very original story. It was very, how do I say this in English? Imaginative? I don't know. I'm sorry if I say that wrong. English is not my first language, but it's a very original story, and I really appreciate that. It's not your typical, just like your traditional story. It's definitely very original and very different, and that is something that I liked. The writing was good too. It was just good. Um, and I think that's the things that I liked about this book. The things that I most like. How original it was, and I also like like obviously like the fantasy, obviously the fantasy like atmosphere, like kind of like the older day feel also, and the tinge of horror also in it. I feel like it was nice. So those are the things that I like about this book. Now, let me talk about the things that I didn't like about this book. Let's see. Where do I start with? No. One of the things that I didn't like about this book was the characters. For me, the characters in this book felt a little bit shallow and just not deep or really complex characters at all. Some characters were just annoying, I would say, and just like characters that were unlovable, that you couldn't relate to them, and characters that I would actually just say like, oh, I don't like this character, at all. I feel like this character is annoying, and or this character is just not well developed, or just not sometimes I felt like there were some characters that I kind of like, but they were just, all of them were kind of shallow, but some of them were just too perfect. Some of them were just, I don't know. But I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything. But like I said, that being said, the characters, to be honest, I really didn't care about them at all. There were some characters that I did like, but I think that the number of characters that I didn't really care about, or that I didn't really like, outnumbered the number, the quantity of the characters that I did like. So sadly, that's one thing. The second thing that I didn't like about this book was the romance. For me, this book just didn't need it. It felt forced. It felt unnecessary. It was weird. It was uncomfortable. I will say this. I don't know if this counts as a spoiler. Maybe not. I mean, I won't tell you what happened. But there is, so to say, an adult scene. Let's put it like that. Which I felt was it just ruined a big portion of the book, because I felt like it wasn't necessary, and I felt like I was forced, and it just didn't go well. It just, like, why, why do you put it there? It just wasn't necessary, especially, like I said, with the romance that was going on, and everything and whatever. The romance just didn't feel believable. It was just weird and uncomfortable and just not believable, like I said. I didn't like that about the book at all. Like I said before, the characters were not lovable, and then like putting a romance that just didn't work, and that was just strange and kind of like messed up in a way that I won't say, because of course I don't want to spoil. But, in a way that's just like kind of like unreasonable. I didn't like that at all. So the romance is definitely something that really kind of ruins the book for me. Because okay, I could do like with the characters that are, but if it has like a interesting like the plot and the things that are happening, and I guess, but but that romance just, I felt like it didn't belong. It didn't do well in this book, and I felt like it would have been better if the author would have left it out, but that's just me. Something else that I didn't like about this book was the fact that, but maybe this is just me, but the fact that I was expecting more folkloric elements, because I read, I don't think it was like supposed to be inspired or based. Well, actually based will be the right word. I guess it is inspired. I don't think maybe it wasn't meant to be based on this, but maybe inspired, but I just felt like it was just too superficial. And I was expecting more from that. Was the folk elements, like the folkloric elements. I read that this was going to be like I said, I guess inspired, not based, but inspired by Polish fairy tales and folk tales, and Polish folklore, like Slavic, however you say it, folklore, and especially, of course, Polish, because the author has Polish roots. So I was really excited about that. That was one of the things that I was most excited about, because I love learning about folklore, and I love folk tales and fairy tales, and I love to explore like different countries when it comes to like folklore and fairy tales and folk tales. So I was like super excited about that, and it was really disappointing because it pretty much didn't, like there were the names and some aspects of it, but just so light, just so light, so that was definitely something that kind of like disappointed me too. But I guess that's more of a personal thing, because a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, they don't care about folklore elements or the fairy tale elements or any of that. So that was just me. But I was expecting more of that ancient folklore feeling, and there was very, very little of that. So that was definitely something that that kind of like disappointed me. Yeah. And something else that I didn't like is just that sometimes the book just felt a little bit tiresome to read. Like, I don't know. It just, sometimes I just felt like I was like, oh, like this is kind of weird. There are parts of the book that were just slightly strained, and it was a little bit like over the place, and I was just like, yeah, and sometimes I just didn't feel like drawn in, to the book, and like the horror elements in it, they were all right, but it was original, like I said. That's one of the things that I like, but it's not something that I loved either. So, yeah, the plot was okay, also, like I said, it's original and all, but there were some aspects from it that I didn't really like either. But I think it mainly has to do also with characters, and yeah, and that, like, and with the dragon and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. I guess I was expecting something else. But yeah, and something else that I didn't like, I was expecting, this is, it does have a lot of somber elements in it, but maybe I was expecting something more, less YA and a little bit more. And I'm not, when I say that, I don't mean like, like mature or adult scenes, because I don't really care about those, if you know what I mean. But I meant like more depth. There is, like there are interesting things on the plot and stuff like that, but I was expecting for something that felt less like a YA. I guess that was also something that I just was expecting, because I think I don't know if people consider this an adult or a young adult book. I don't know. Yeah, but I was expecting just something more, not traditional, but more based on the folklore, and just more rooted rooted to the to those, like folkloric and older roots, and just a little bit more mature in a lot of sense, because sometimes it just felt a little bit too over the top sometimes, and sometimes it just like fell flat. I don't even know what to say, too much. Yeah, but like I said, the things that I mostly dislike were the characters and that romance that just completely ruined it. It was just so, I didn't like that at all. And yeah, like I said, it was original, but still sometimes it felt a little bit flat. Sometimes it was like kind of like, ooh, like a lot of things are going on, and but like in a weird way, and it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. Of course, I'm trying to like not to say a lot, because I don't want to spoil anything. This is just like a general review. But yeah, I think those were the main things that I didn't like about the book. So it outweighed, sadly, like the number of things that I did like. And I was expecting a lot of this book. I was expecting to get, like more somber, like very olden day fairy tale kind of vibe. Like, because I read here that somebody said that that it's familiar as a grim fairy tale, and I do not agree with that at all. It feels too YA and just too kind of like modernized in a way, and like I said, the sickly romance and everything just didn't help it at all, and like the weird horror element that sometimes didn't really go well either, and some weird other things that just happen, for example, some things that happen in the wood, and then in the end what they discover from it and stuff like that. It was original, but I feel like I could have been executed in a better way. I'm not saying that Naomi Novik is a bad writer. I'm not saying that, that this is a horrible book or anything. Of course, I would rather read this than many other things. But yeah, that's my opinion. But anyways, who would I recommend this to if you're into YA? If you're into like more of those typical, which I don't really care about, to be honest, typical YA books, like that you see in the bookstores, and even at like stores that don't even sell books, that they're kind of like everywhere. Of course, I would say this is much better than those, but it has that feeling also. So I recommend this if you like those type of like YA style with like weird romances and whatever kind of books, I guess. Also, if you like fantasy with a touch of horror, I wouldn't say that this is the one that, that's best done, but I guess if you want to give it a try, obviously it's a fantasy book, and if you like, obviously, like the magic and stuff like that, then I guess you could give it a try. But yeah, and if you like I said, some horror elements here and there. Who would I not recommend this to? People like me. No. I would not recommend this to maybe someone who's waiting for something, like I said, more serious and more mature, something that is more rooted again to those folk elements, to those fairy tale elements that we love. Something that reads more as a classic tale. If you're expecting that, this is not going to be something that you're going to be happy about. And of course, if you don't like weird romances, and if you don't like if you love like epic fantasy and stuff like that, and you have no time for like weird romance YA, don't waste your time with this book, because you just won't like it. And like I said, if you're expecting a more maturely done fairy tale, that feels like a classic and just beautiful in that sense of like how fairy tales are, that feeling that they give you, then you'll be disappointed with this book, sadly. So yeah, what would I give this book? I would give it, being really generous, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. I would give it 2.5, but the fact that it's pretty original, it's a pretty original plot. It would have been better executed, and there were elements that just I felt like were unnecessary and just ruined the book. But just because of that, and the fact that it was okay, entertained in a way, even though sometimes it felt a little bit too much, and you just wanted to be like, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, being generous and just taking in consideration its originality and its ideas. So yeah, 3 out of 5 are Uprooted by Naomi Novik. So, like I said, a lot of people love this book. So did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you feel lukewarm about it? Do you agree with me in some points? What do you most like about this book? What do you most dislike? Tell me what you think about it, and tell me if you agree with the things that I said, if you don't, and all those things. Let's discuss this book. Let's see what you guys think, and let's talk about it. So yeah, that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this review and for visiting my channel. If you want to embark on this journey with me, you're more welcome to do so. So hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be doing more cool reviews on really magical and cool books. And yeah, so embark on that journey with me, and let's get reading and let's get discussing about these books. So yeah, thank you guys so much for visiting. I'll see you guys on my next review. Read on. Bye-bye.